Namaste, Vandanon. Today we are here with the next session of uh, Journey to Decarbonization. We learn from you. Yes, today is our esteemed guest is somebody I just stumbled upon on LinkedIn. I came across his profile on LinkedIn and I saw the interesting work he's been doing, not just in climate action, but so many other things. I was like, this guy seems to be really interesting. I need to connect with him and sent him the friend request, and we got connected. And then eventually, when I got to know what he's doing, I was baffled. Now, who is this person I'm talking so much about? He's none other than Rushva Parihar. I hope I pronounced your name. Welcome, Rushva. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for
much for
giving us
having
the
me. It's
time.
very great.
I really look forward to learn more during this conversation. So, request you to introduce yourself and everything that you do so that all our viewers get to know you better.
Sure. Just quickly, as a quick summary, what I do is I work as a sustainability consultant, and that's a very large kind of um, purview of things, and I think a lot of things fall under that. But under that, we run a bunch of programs. I have a foundation called the Improving Lives Foundation, where we support innovations to get them to underserved communities. We also have a consulting firm called AndSustainablity that really focuses on um, three aspects of sustainability. One of them is policy. How do we leverage policy? How do we help contribute to policy? We also work with startups who are in the sustainability space to help them grow, because I think that the challenges that sustainability-based startups have are very different from challenges that any other kind of startup has. Primarily because the way we imagine growth in sustainability is very different. And I think that's the kind of bridge that we help build and fill. And the third thing we do with sustainability is we fundraise. So a lot of times challenge startups, are always struggling with money and how they make money and how they raise money. And there are a lot of investors out there who have a mindset that will really support these kind of initiatives, but they don't know where to find startups. So we also play the role of a bridge in that sense as well. And I think from my past experience, I'm able to leverage a lot of learnings and put that into action with the work that we do within our businesses today.
Awesome. Awesome. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I mean, um, as you were saying, Rishabh, that you're helping the key part with respect to money, and startups need that. And I mean, mine is a startup too. So I know the journey, how it goes. And I'm
It's
sure,
difficult. It's not easy at all.
yes, and I'm sure you're being a blessing for all these companies, literally like a boon for all these people who really need. And I'm sure you handhold somewhere in the process.
We do, we
That
do. For all of our programs, we always handhold because I tell you something that we've learned, that fundraising is not an easy game. It is a really difficult task, and it also is really difficult because the internal capacity to be able to receive funding requires to be built. And a lot of times, startups struggle with, even though they may have a funder, they struggle with being able to receive money because these internal capacities are not fully developed. Um, and I know, for example, some of our startups have spent more than a year in due diligence. Um, that's after they've gotten the approval. So we had a few startups that went on to Shark Tank. Uh, they raised money on Shark Tank, but that money never came in for more than a year because they spent that year just doing due diligence. And we don't want that to happen with the startups that we work with always. So learning from all of our experiences, we work very closely in hand holding and making sure that startups have the capacity to be able to receive funds. They have strategic vision that is in place. And most importantly, they are aligned with the sustainable development goals. The SDGs for me are the most phenomenal roadmap that have been created at an international level. Um, and I think that if we can all align to that, as was the vision of the SDGs, I obviously come from a very biased perspective on that, because I worked on building some of those indicators and parameters while I was in the United Nations before this. Um, so it's a very biased view, perhaps, but I think that overall, aligning with the SDGs allows you to align not just with funding perspectives, but align with national development targets or with international targets. So in that sense, I really think that it's quite phenomenal as a roadmap to use.
Awesome, awesome. That's wonderful. Now, you just touched upon the topic called as sustainable development goals. So, tell us a little bit about sustainable development goals and your journey towards it. What was that factor that made you say that, no, this is where the future lies? And this is where our contribution, everything comes around this. What was that point?
So back in 2014, end of 2013, beginning of 2014, we actually, as we were working on the Sustainable Development Goals frameworks, we were actually, I was part of a team there at the United Nations who was working on something called the MDGs that were called the Millennium Development Goals.
Right,
Those were in place from to the year 2000 till the year 2015.
right.
And in 2015, a new set of goals were going to be presented at the General Assembly. And we wanted to work on, okay, how can we really make this a roadmap for development? Obviously, I have to point out that I was not alone in this. There was a very, very large team that worked on creating, 17 goals and 169 targets. Like it was not an easy pathway for anyone to do, but it was a very large team that did it. Um, and my focus really was on SDG 6 at that point, which is access to water and sanitation. And
Wow.
my role there was to understand how can private sector be involved. So one of the
True.
new things that Secretary General Ban Ki-moon did at that point was say that the new goals that we create were not only for governments, were not only for countries, but they would be for the private sector, they would be for anyone who really wants to address development. And so these 17 goals are a very comprehensive set of targets that will allow us to really come to the next level of development coming out of poverty. Uh, we have the base level goals that focus on poverty alleviation. Then there are goals that focus on the ecosphere, ecosystem in general. With things like life underwater, life on land, biodiversity, energy, all of these pieces fall within that
True.
sector of the goals. And then, of course, there are goals of partnership and evolution. So there's goal 17, which is focused only on partnerships and how partnerships can be leveraged to make development happen. And of course, there's also goal 16, which is focused on peace, justice, and security. And while we may not, I mean, today is a great day to have a conversation around this because we see the devastating impact of war, whether it's in Ukraine or in Gaza,
Right.
and that what that has on developmental indicators, what that has on children, on their education outcomes, what impact that has on infrastructure, on clean energy. And unless we really start addressing all of these things in a more comprehensive manner, we're going to be left behind and we're never going to achieve our target of, you know, eradicating poverty on this planet. And I think that's what was so visionary about these goals that was created because in 2015 the war was not really on the horizon for anybody.
True,
Uh,
true, true.
Even if you think about pre-COVID, right? I mean, there were no big wars that were happening, and we were not really seeing that impact. But now, today, I think that conversation is different. But obviously, you have to think back as to when these goals were made.
True.
Um, it was a very visionary framework was created. Um, So about 2 years of working on these goals, working on international legislation. So we worked on creating policy frameworks for the EU, for the Indian government, for WEF, on how can private sector be involved in achieving these goals. I realized 2 years into that I was like, I think that we need to kind of get away from this policy top-down approach and maybe get into this on ground, like just start going to private sector enterprises and helping them in achieving these goals. So in 2017, I actually quit the UN, came back to India. I was in the Netherlands at that time, and just started. Like I started this consulting firm. I started my foundation, and we're like, we're gonna make it easy for companies to invest in development, and that's what we did.
Awesome, awesome. It's so inspiring, Rishabh. I mean, you had a very thriving, successful job and career, what you were doing, but it's the vision that made you say, no, not this, I need to do something more. And today you're not just doing with your satisfaction, with your passion, but you're even able to help whole lot of people and you're creating an ecology of a better tomorrow. I really appreciate this. Kudos to you and your entire team.
You're
Amazing.
very kind. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful for any kind of appreciation that we get for our work. And really, like it's something that's always rewarding, right? When we see the work translating into action. That's what's the most rewarding part. Over the last 6 years, 7 years now, we've been able to impact more than 230,000 people.
Wow.
Um, really focus on getting them to solve challenges that they are seeing in their communities around them. And that to me is the most rewarding. So I think even today, I make sure that I go on field visits. I'm on the ground. I'm in the villages where we're working. And that's really important to me because that's what motivates you to keep going. So if
True,
you don't
true.
have that, then you're kind of, you're stuck in this like office room and you're thinking, ये village में ये हो रहा है. No, I don't have that. I'm like, I'm going to go to the village. I'm going to see what's happening, see how we can change, and what we can change.
True, true.
So
That's
that's what we've been
amazing.
trying to do. And our approach has been really, what we've realized. I'm sorry, I'm not letting you speak. I'm just
That's
jabbering
okay.
and bumbling on. So
No,
please don't
no, we want to
stop
know
me at any
more. Please
point.
go ahead. Please go ahead. We want to know more. Please go.
But we have, thank you. So our approach has changed, since we started. We said, okay, we want to start working with foundations and help them kind of get money and help the foundations raise money to solve challenges on the ground. And what we realized over the last maybe 5 years is that foundations are not motivated to actually solve problems, right? So a foundation, for example, if you look at an educational foundation, for example, it exists because the problem exists. So if
Correct.
every single child is fully educated, then there was no need for an educational foundation. So they are not
Correct.
motivated to solve the problem. They are motivated to solve the symptoms of the problem.
Correct.
Uh, and so with that perspective in mind, in 2022, we changed our modus operandi and we said we're not going to support any foundation. So actually we support no foundations through our Improving Lives Foundation. We say no more foundation support. We only support social enterprises and for-profit organizations. So we hunt for innovations. I'm on the board of a bunch of incubators. I'm on the board of institutions like the Institution of Risk Management. And I also
Wow.
teach a program with SEBI on ESG and risk management from that perspective. And what I realized there are a lot of amazing entrepreneurs, innovators that are creating solutions to problems that we see on ground, but they're not able to actually reach communities that need them the most. They are able to reach the affluent people. They're able to reach people who have money and can afford to pay for their services. But what about the person who's living in the slum? You've
True.
created this. I'll give you an example. We have this fantastic STEM education program innovator that basically has reimagined how can you create, how can you make STEM education accessible, how can you make it easy, how can you make it exciting for the child, and how can you make sure that it's up to date. Because if you look at our curriculums don't include anything about AI. They don't include anything about robotics.
Yes.
Uh, these kids are not going to be able to compete in the world outside if they don't have these
Right,
skills.
right,
Um,
right.
so we found this fantastic innovation that's creating these tinkering labs, but all on STEM. They help kids build robots. They help kids
Wow.
leverage AI into coding. And we've set up 70 of these labs all across rural India, um, where the school has to pay nothing because we pay for it. And the kids get exposure to all of these kind of skills and hopefully are going to be able to come out and create more innovations that we will also continue to support.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's like you're not just helping, you're investing in future. At the same time, the return on investment is something that is not just something you say tangible in the form of money. It's the satisfaction that you get, which is beyond words to explain. Amazing, amazing. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much, Rishabh, for this kind of work. It's really intriguing and inspiring too. So this leads to my next question. What can businesses do to align to SDG goals? Because now ESG becoming mandate as per SEBI rules. Um, Now it's coming from multinationals to small and medium. Small do not know that knowledge level itself is below 5% or 2%. But what can businesses do in this field?
I think, there are a few things. One is to understand that, so, I'll tell you something. Small and medium enterprises, right? Focus is survival.
True,
It's like
true.
if you go to them and say, okay, you have to pay 60 lakhs to do ESG reporting, they're going to be like, I don't have 60 lakhs to pay my salaries. I'm not going to give you 60 lakhs
True.
to but just coincidentally, EY, for example, charges 60 lakhs to do. There are things that MSMEs kind of focus on, right? The one piece is kind of understanding because maybe you can't do everything, but you can do one thing or two things or three things, and leverage just those three things for yourself. Um, we have a wonderful startup that we support that focuses on um, measuring. So they create what you have in a factory devices based on how many inputs you need, will give you a lot of clarity as an MSME as to where the wastage is happening. So if you can measure something, you can track it. If you can't measure it, you
True,
can't track it.
true,
So
true, true.
for MSMEs, the biggest thing that I always say is just focus on measurement. Focus on getting one or two indicators that you can start measuring because that is what is going to change for you. If because when if you can track with that water meter, for example, how much water is being used, you'll also know, okay, I don't need to use this much water. You'll also know maybe there's extra water being used in, say, one factory process, or it's being used in the canteen extra, or it's being used somewhere else, right? You can work on bringing that down. And when the water cost goes down, maybe the overall cost goes down. Similarly with
True,
electricity, because
true.
all of these things are not free services, you pay for them. So if
Correct,
you use
correct.
most of it, you get cost saving. And so that's where it makes sense. Um, Including like now, if you look at the plastic waste management rules have changed. There is extended consumer responsibility that has come up, producer responsibility that's come up, which
Right,
requires companies to take charge of all the plastic that they create. So if you don't
correct,
measure it, how do you take charge of it? So I
correct.
always tell all the startups that we work with that there is measurement is key. The other piece that I want to also talk about for businesses and aligning with the SDGs is businesses often make the mistake of aligning with all 17 goals or wanting to align with all 17 goals. That
Hmm,
is foolish because
correct.
unless you are a reliance, you are not touching every single one of those goals. You
Right.
are probably touching one or two of those goals at the most. Focus on those goals and do really well on them, whatever those goals are for you.
Very well
Um,
said.
and there's a lot of innovation that exists in the space. And often these are coming out of, incubators, IITs, IIMs, leverage new technology. Um, that I think is really, really important as well. And if you don't know where to find, please get in touch with me. I'll help you. I'll connect you to every single kind of technology that exists.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. That's
It's a
amazing.
shameless self-plug, but I feel like sometimes it's acceptable.
No, it's not because people need to know where they need to seek support. They need to know whom to reach out to. And with the way things are moving, just yesterday I was talking to one of my classmates and he was saying how things are moving in the right direction. But at the same time, there are so many people there to only con. There are so many people there only to swindle money in the process. We need to be very careful. And this is something that has led me to do this show and say we need to have a platform where we know we have genuine resources available. People need to reach out to these resources if they need support. It is there, it is available in India. India is not a country where we are dealt with talent or resources. We have abundance. We just need to
I
tap the
agree.
right door.
I agree. Totally agree. I mean, we are an abundant country,
Yes,
and we have abundance of every single thing. Um, Whatever it may be, whether it's human resources, brain capital, innovation capacity, jugaad, which is also a thing that is only uniquely Indian.
yes.
It exists in all forms, so leverage it.
Yes, yes. So this is much needed, and this are when people are literally shifting, laterally shifting, moving towards a different direction. The trajectories are changing. It's absolutely needed, and I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge here and helping us out. So, Rishabh, I want to ask the next question is how can businesses align to SDG goals? How do you help them? Can you just give out about few examples?
So I think the SDGs in particular are very comprehensive. So if you went to the SDG website and looked at each goal target, we've created, I mean, I'm saying we because, I was part of that team. We've created very specific targets. So with each target, there is a specific indicator. Sometimes there are usually two or three indicators for each target. And focus on getting your business out of or getting your business to achieve those indicators. That's the key. Because it's very easy to talk lofty. It's very easy to talk, right? It's very
True, true,
difficult to do.
true.
And doing requires you to have some kind of tangible goal in mind.
Correct.
And creating that goal, which is actionable, requires resources and information. And I think that for the SDGs, that information is very readily available on their website. But for ESG, some of that is still a black hole for many people. They don't fully understand all the different parameters that go into ESG reporting. Uh, and that is difficult to find. So I always tell startups that I work with, you need to align with the SDGs. Eventually, you'll align with the ESG as well, because they're all kind of interlinked. In 2020, actually, we did a fantastic project with the World Economic Forum, where we worked on integrating three different reporting parameters for ESG. There was GRI, CDP, and CCMP with the
Wow,
SDGs. And that's, I
wow.
think, coming out next year finally. Um, but it's there. There is an innate knowledge and framework that exists with the SDGs. I always say focus on those.
Wow, wow, wow. That's amazing. I mean, you've already worked on something that's going to come in future, and today you're talking. That's so nice. That's amazing. So, what do you look for organizations to support?
If we're supporting the organizations from the perspective of giving them grants, so we also from the Improving Lives Foundation, we issue zero equity grants. All of these grants are focused on impact. So if you can create an impact in underserved communities, we are willing to give you a grant. Our grant sizes range from between 5 and 50 lakhs, and
Wow.
we deploy about 40 crores a year. Um, to startups, innovations that are going to serve communities that are completely underserved. Our goal is really how can we reach the people who no one else is reaching. So whether it's rural economies, whether it is slum people, whether it's people who live in very difficult to reach areas, and therefore essential services don't reach them. We work on all of those fronts.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. That's amazing. So this leads us to the fag end of our discussion. I didn't even realize we've crossed 30 minutes now. So I just want to ask you, Rishabh, what is your advice to all our viewers?
You know, a lot of times people ask me this question, what is my advice to startups? What is my advice to someone XYZ, right? And I never have something concrete to say because advice is dime a dozen. Like there are hundreds of people out there who are going to give you advice, and it it may work for you and it may not. And I think that it's very important for startups, particularly if you're a viewer today and you are a startup. Think about what are you serving, who are you serving, like who is your target audience, and what does growth look like for you? Those are two questions that you must have answers to. And if those two answers have anything linked to sustainability, have anything linked to development, and you feel like you can create impact but you're not able to create impact, then let me also tell you that there are enough people out there who will help you do that. um,
Wow.
so my advice is always listen to yourselves, focus inward, and focus on building your business to create impact, because that's what we need in the world today.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, to all our viewers, you are intrigued because what Rishabh shared is just a gist or a snippet. There is lots more to it. You are intrigued, you want to know more, you need support, you need guidance, you need advice, you need whatever kind of help, please feel free to reach out to Rishabh. All his social media details and everything that what he does is mentioned below, and you can reach out to him. In case you're not able to connect directly to him, reach out to me. I will connect you to him, and we'll be more than happy to collaborate because I believe this is the time for collaboration, not competition. And I am more than
I
happy to
agree.
help you all, and even Rishabh, if I can help you in any way, please do not hesitate. I'll be more than
So you,
happy
you
to
are
help
already
you.
helping us. Like you're already helping us having these conversations. So I'm very grateful for that. Thank you so much for doing this, for creating this platform, and for really making sustainability more accessible. I'm very grateful
Yes.
for you.
Thank you so much, Rishabh, and thank you for all the great things that we've discussed through this discussion. Thank you for your time, and looking forward for a great collaboration in the years to come.
Absolutely, absolutely. I hope it happens soon. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
To all who are watching us, Journey to Decarbonizations We Learn From You is a talk show presented by Intelliace Solutions Private Limited. In this talk show, we meet with our esteemed guests and we learn from them how they began their journey towards sustainability or decarbonization. What have they learned in the process? What are the challenges they have faced? What kind of products and services they offer through their work? And also, what kind of learnings we can get from them and how we can collaborate or synergize with them and create a better tomorrow. This show is available on our YouTube channel and on our social media channels, that is Facebook and LinkedIn. Anybody who is interested in being a part of the show, please reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to have you as a part of the discussion and learn from you through your journey to decarbonizations, through your journey to sustainability. Thank you, one and all, for watching us and encouraging us.